also just been making tons of films. And we wanted to invite her here tonight to kind of tell us a little bit about why she made the film and hopefully answer some questions that you have. We also have Kimonti Carter, who you guys seen in the film, as well as Tonya Wilson. So a couple of housekeeping things. I'll be facilitating. Molly Mattingly, our administrative assistant, will be moderating. And if you have a question or you want to just put it in the chat, we will do our best to get your questions answered. We have a few prepared questions first, and then we'll open it up for those of you on here with us to answer some questions. I also would like to take the opportunity to introduce Becky Herrera, our executive director, and as well as Heidi Wally, who is our paralegal for the bail fund. Also too, Dr. Sheppard sits on our board. She is a member of the Northwest Community Bail Fund's board of directors. So that's also a special treat for us too. Did I miss anything, Becky, Molly, before we get ready to just go, dive right on in? Just so you know, Kimonti's kind of on limited time. He can only talk for every 20 minutes or so. So there may be some times where he's just coming back in, and we'll work it out though. We gonna get through it. Okay. So first I want to start, Dr. Sheppard, and just ask you, why did you decide to make this film, or what was your inspiration for making the film?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's nice being a board member, but I'm learning so much from all my colleagues and on the board. And Chanel, even though I was your teacher, you were my teacher all the while. And so we've done joint work together, and it just encourages me to see you in this position and all the work that you're doing. Thank you so much. I'm joined here with Tonya Wilson and Kimonti Carter, two people who played a major role in the film and who also have been my teachers, right? You know, it's a two-headed arrow. I was doing a film in Ghana, West Africa, in a refugee camp, a kind of ethnographic film. And one of the women who has been a refugee for over a decade told me, you know, when I was talking with child soldiers and, you know, kids who were involved in the Civil War in Liberia since they were 11 years old and those kinds of things. And so she said, you know, Sis Gilda, the same AK-47 that you see on the streets in the Civil War in Liberia are on your streets in your children's hands, and you need to do something about that. Mm-hmm. So I started doing some work in the community where Evergreen State College Tacoma is, and I met Tonya Wilson, who was an amazing, one of my most brilliant students. Then all of a sudden she disappeared, and I didn't see her anymore. And you know, you get worried about young people who just disappear, especially this young Black woman who was brilliant, mm-hmm. who is brilliant. And then one thing led to another, and I started teaching at the prison in Monroe, Washington State Reformatory. And then after meeting Tonya, I met Kimonti Carter, but I met so many Monty Carters, even though he is unique, who belong to the Black Prisoners Caucus, a over 40-year prisoner initiated program that's doing phenomenal work in spite of the punitive policies, and had non-negotiable pathways, I dare say, because of the way we criminalize poverty and how we treat our children, you know, who gets suspended, who gets expelled, had a non-negotiable pathway to joining gangs. Kamante joined a gang and he was 11, right? And I met not only members of the Black Prisoners Caucus, but people cross race lines who are doing phenomenal work in one of the worst places possible, mm-hmm. prison. And they were doing it across significant differences, you know, with Asian Pacific Islanders and white nationalist gangs, on and on and on, cross crime lines. And I thought, what is wrong with us? Can't we learn from this group? What is compassion in action? What are we doing to our children? So I think as an artist, I need to show you, as James Baldwin says, things that you sometimes don't see, and how we have been conciliatory, you know, and the laws that we passed, like 3 strikes you're out, that started in Washington State. I was talking to a senator, and she did not even know, and this is a good senator, that that we don't have parole. So out of sight, out of mind. Like,
Right.
I didn't realize what was going on in the problems of bails and jails and those kinds of things, till I got involved in this organization. And so I wanted to tell these stories, or capture, embrace these stories, because it really speaks to what we do to children, you know, and people who live on the margin, and what happens. Kimonti Carter is one of the most brilliant people that I know, as is Tonya Wilson, but they were suspended, thrown out of school, and so many other things. And I think, like, we failed them. And so I wanted to show what, in spite of this culture of punishment, you know, as one person says, how we punish says more about us than those we punish. And so I wanted to show, not to make folks feel like, oh, slow fade in the gore, because this is not a prison film. This is a film on the triumph of the human spirit, and how you can use your marginalized position as a place of radical possibilities. I mean, that's what Bell Hooks says. And we, no matter where we sit, in the center or on the margin, take on a marginalized position, so that you can see, structural, systemic problems that sometimes we have a blind eye to with our beautiful liberal selves. And so it made me, in a really good way, uncomfortable, and I needed that uncomfortability to face what, where I stand and how I stand. And so I'm a storyteller, and I wanted to tell this story and share it with other folks in case they needed it as well. So, I mean, that's a long story, but you know me, Chanel. I need to be quiet.
Okay, no, we're doing good. And you know what? You kind of touched on my next question. So we wanted to know, you have years of experience as a documentarian, sociology professor, and a criminal punishment reform activist. Was there anything else that you learned when making this film, or something
I
that
learned my
shocked you, or you just didn't realize?
I learned my contradictions, and I learned I remember this one guy was in prison. I said, "Oh, Marcus, this is your second time in prison?" He said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh." And so another guy over there, a larger man who's darker skinned, Black guy like me, Black. And he says, "I bet you weren't surprised that this is the second time I'm in prison." And I was like, whoa, and also how prisons are made for men, not for women. Going over to the women's prison, I realized how our bodies are a political space, and particularly with women, and how even there's a margin on the margin, and what can happen. And also I learned that the importance of serving and using my privilege in a responsible way, and always doing something that makes me uncomfortable, and using my uncomfortability as an example, not to point, this is what you did. I'm gonna say, I understand your problem, because let me tell you what my problem is. Those kinds of things, to put ourselves on the line. And I learned this from Kimonti Carter and his colleagues, and Tonya Wilson. And that's the reason why we go around all the time. But I want you to get to Kimonti, because he's gonna have to leave.
Right. So actually, this next question is for both Ta and Kamante, but we'll let Kamante answer first. Miriam Kaba, prison abolitionist, says, "Hope is a discipline." Do you agree? If so, how do you maintain hope?
Kimonti?
How do I maintain? All right. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Hope is definitely a discipline, right? Because you can lose it. If really, I think losing sight of just all that you're able to, all that you are connected to, all that you are capable of, and all of your possibilities. And I think that for myself, holding on to my hope was, I think really discovering my potential, like being able to really discover that, like, I haven't even scratched the surface of the person that I was, and I literally have almost destroyed my opportunity at being able to really give myself a chance at really discovering who I really am. And so when you get to thinking about hope, like, hope is really about never giving up, like never willing to make that compromise, to yourself, to your values, to the people who hold you close and dear in their hearts. And I think that when you see hope gone in other people, right, when you see the fight disappear and people really begin to kind of accept reality as this is as good as it gets, I think sometimes either it can defeat you or it can just really encourage you to.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
To fight that much harder. And for me, I think that it was a combination of all, right? Being able to see exactly what a loss of hope actually looks like, in people who are still alive and breathing, but also being able to just recognize that I am capable of so much more. And so those are the things that inspired me to never give up. I'm about to call back.
Okay. That's
All
cool.
right.
We'll go ahead and talk. Tonya, or excuse me,
You have 30
Tonya
seconds
Wilson,
remaining.
her government name, but I know her as Top.
I got Ta on here.
So I'll repeat the question. Do you want me to repeat the question, or did you hear it?
Yes.
Hope
please.
is a discipline. Do you agree? And if so, how do you maintain hope?
I think that I agree like we could deep dive into it, but this is the kind of question that I like. I agree, but I also would say, and hope is a reflex. It's something that we do reflexively. Like when you're falling to reach out for something. And I think that hope is something that's juxtaposed to our expectations of what we can do and what we expect from the world around us. Oftentimes we think of it like theoretically in terms of something that is a positive thing to have, but while we're experiencing it, it does not feel good. Hope does not feel good because it's like balanced with fear. Like, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it through this race? Whether it's a marathon or a prison sentence or, anything that has some kind of endurance factor to it. And so it often doesn't feel good while you're experiencing it. But I don't know what it feels like to give it up.
Okay.
So I don't know what it would feel like to not reach out for something every time that I fell,
Right.
to try to stabilize myself. And so I guess that balancing act of knowing that you could, like, your hopes can be dashed over and over again in an incarceral setting, whether you're going to get a visit, whether these things are going to happen for you. And especially in someone like Kimonti, who's my brother, in his case, whether he is going to be able to realize the rest of his life outside of that state, and life isn't worth living if you don't have it. It loses its savor. And so I think that to be able to maintain it means that you have to eke it out, like you have to budget your hope for things that really matter,
Right.
and save your energy for things that matter when your ultimate hope is to have autonomy of your life again. And that commentary is a sad commentary about the way that our social and legal system is, because it has nothing to do with balance, which what justice is about. Balance. The skills are there for a reason. And
True that.
So there's no hope in the balance of what it is.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is for Kimonti. Actually, Dr. Sheppard has been teaching in prisons. That's too actually how I met Ta, and I was once working for a higher education and prison program at WCCW. Kimonti, since the film was produced, do you think, or do you believe that without the TEACH program, FEPPS or UBB, that policies would change, or like, has anything changed? Like without that, do you think any of these changes that you've kind of seen in prison since then would have happened without these educational programs?
Oh, I just had to unmute. Go right ahead, Kamante. No problem.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So without these education programs, I believe that the changes would have still been able to occur. I definitely think changes would have occurred, because that was something that we was fighting for the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When I think about the Black Prisoners Caucus, the Black Prisoners Caucus was created in 1972. So the brothers created the platform way before I was even born, as a way of being able to, give us the tools that we needed, as a way of being able to address the inequities that existed and the opportunities that we needed to create for our own lives. And so, I and Tonya and many of the brothers who I learned from, and many of the sisters that Tonya learned from, were already present in the prison system, already sowing the seeds. Right? All we did was just pick up the baton and continue to do the work. Okay. And so before UBB was created, right, we was having BPC Black History classes and BPC business classes, and we was trying to provide ourselves, with opportunities that we felt that we needed in order for, young brothers who was coming up in the system to succeed. And so, I just think that what we was able to do was really to capitalize on the energy that was really generated by the people who believed in us, and by the people who believed that additional tools in our tool belt was what we needed, as a way of being able to make better decisions for our lives and for the communities in which we was absent from, but going back to. And so out of the BPC business classes ultimately created the UBB, right? Yeah. From the UBB, we was able to attract, beautiful sponsors and educators like Gilda Sheppard and Dr. Marcia Tater-Runga and Dr. Mims and Gary Heidelberg and Kente, who ultimately was coming inside of the prison that was willing to contribute, to our liberation education. And then what started to happen was that liberation education began to spread. Right, these was those examples led to FEPPS being created, and once the energy begun to really catch fire is ultimately where BPC Teach came from. Right, and so all we was doing was just building on a platform that was already there. Right, like they say, ain't nothing new up under the sun. But it just seemed that this was the time. We took advantage of the time in order for us really to turn it into something great. And, and hopefully this is something that is able to catch fire, not just here in Washington, but across the country, because I think that we can provide the opportunities and the tools that we need for ourselves as people who are either currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, to where it doesn't always have to fall back on the institution to provide us with those opportunities. So I think, yes, I definitely think change would have came in one shape or another, right? But it's just because we came at the right time is ultimately where how this story got told.
Right, that's what's up. Thank you. You know what? The next question is for Ta. The film primarily focuses on men's prisons. However, we know gender impacts people's experiences. Was there anything that the film touched on that was different from what you experienced in a women's prison?
Excellent.
I think that there's not so much what they call politicking in women's prison, and men. When I first got asked if there were politics in prison, I was like, "Oh yeah, we have some, we have some political science classes," and I'm like, "Oh girl, no." I didn't know what it meant.
Right.
But I think that just like the pathways for women to go to prison are different, a little different than men, like whatever the things that are the source of those behaviors or those choices. The way that we relate to each other in a women's prison are different. And so while there are women who have grown up with certain cultural or geographical or just maybe just familial belief systems that might like predispose them to not like people of color, it doesn't stop them from making those connections eventually. Like those things break down when women are together. And so I know that you guys have probably heard or seen on different things that women start to create family units, and a lot of times that is true because that ability to connect to people is just always and instantly there, whether it's destructive or dysfunctional, it's still there. But also men are more disciplined in the structure of their days, so they because there's a lot more physical danger, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, Tonya sometimes is self-effacing. Yes, there's that tendency for women to do that, but that tendency was really encouraged by a intention that Tonya and some of her colleagues had in creating what's called the Women's Village.
Mm-hmm.
When they created the Women's Village, that was likened to Teach, right? They had classes and those kinds of things on so many different things, even in environmental science, nonviolent communication, and so many things. Violence was the prison with the most violence. When Tonya Wilson and her colleagues, who really started FEPPS, which is now a degree granting educational program in the women's prison through UPS, they started that. They laid the groundwork for that. But when they started the Women's Village at the most violent prison, violence went down by 50%. So yes, there may be that tendency, but Ty and her colleagues were intentional with that platform. And they did it because of what Ty and Kamante are saying, even about hope. Hope is an activity. It is not sit down and let me just, like my grandmother said, you see me on my knees, I'm only getting up. She believes in prayer, but she's getting up and got to do something. And I think that is also very intentional that they have in the worst place possible, you all, prison.
Right.
I think that one of the things that is like fundamental about all of the things that we believe in and how it makes us move inside is the fact that there's nothing that makes us have to be who people say we are. Just because we are in a certain situation, circumstance, whatever the mistakes, whatever brought us to the place, whether it's prison or college or the hilltop or a battlefield, it doesn't matter. We have a choice in how we choose to walk in whatever place we're in, and we just chose to walk in excellence. That's what we chose, and we chose it every day. That was the intent.
All right. So I'm going to open it up to this question's for all three of it. Anybody can answer. We here at the Bail Fund are prison abolitionists. We're jail abolitionists. We do not believe in, people being incarcerated or locked in a box or, whatever you want to call it. What alternatives do y'all see to hold people accountable without prison?
Kimonti, you want to go first? Since
alternatives, you know what I'm saying, to holding people accountable, right? I really think that this, you know, when we get to talking about, you know, how do we hold people accountable? I think those decisions are really left up to the communities in which many people belong to.
Okay. Yep.
Right. In order for it to be, in order for it to be something that is, for the people who know the person who have violated whatever the rules or the social contracts that was in place, to, you know, ultimately, you know, provide, you know, saying the discipline necessary, but also the support needed in order to help a person to get back on track, right? Because as society exists now, right, what we have rules that are handed down to people who live outside of a culture or outside of a community, and they determine it based on what they feel that those people need.
yeah,
Right? And so if we get into the habit of always trying to decide for others, then what we'll do is we'll just continue to repeat history.
Right.
I think that we, as a society, I think it's important for us to get back to, you know, being able to have community have a role in how children are raised, how resources are provided, and also how support is given. You know, because I think that when it's done in a communal setting, you know what I'm saying, with, you know, people who are supported from, you know, whether it's the victims or the perpetrators, you know, side, I think that we can tend to agree that, you know, these are the things that we need to help our brother or our sister, you know, recognize that a wrong was committed. However, this is how he or she can make that wrong right. But I think it ultimately has to be a decision that's made by community for community members, in order for it to be, you know, truly about, you know, I think about maintaining
Like restoration, true rest. If you really want to restore folks, the community needs to be there and have a say. I get that. And with that, Ta or Dr. Sheppard, either one of you.
Ta, go ahead.
Okay, I believe it's something along the lines of Kamante, because you cannot. It also, you have to have a stake in the outcome of all the people who are. It's really about a balance. If you don't have a stake, then you don't have any sense of commitment to the well-being of that people, their family, or the person who was wrong. And when it becomes out of balance and it's just about retribution, then it becomes something that is going to eventually eat up everybody in society, because it becomes a society of punishment instead of one of restoration, like you were saying. And, you know, I had heard this brother from the Nation of Islam talking about how if we thought of each other as family, if we thought of people instead of the stranger down the street as my sis or my bro or my nephew or my uncle, or, you know, somebody who is venerated because we have these familial ties, then we're not going to think about throwing them away. We're going to think about asking everybody around them to look at them for the person that they are instead of for the monster that they're not. And you know, it's easy to have a retributive spirit until it's somebody that you love, and then you want society to say, just, I knew them as a child. I held them on my lap. I seen the way they laughed. I knew the way they smell when they slept. Like, I know these things about a person that makes a person a person. Right. And we want people to all see us for our humanity. And so that's where it starts at. This understanding, and even if you can't see it right away, having a fundamental agreement that we all accept that we're all human. And if we can start there, even and then start from the places that we agree and then build on that, we're all human.
Right. And you know, you talk about alternatives and we talk about restorative justice. What I hear from some of the men and women and those who are non-gender conforming say that you're going to restore us to what?
Oh,
you know, and that what we need is transformative justice. I dare say we need both and, right? So to be a prison abolitionist, I think, just like Ruthie Gilmore says, it is a theory of change. It's not like everybody's gonna let them out of prison. We have to have a society that actually loves children and shows it in, is it mindfulness that we do when children allegedly misbehave, right? What do? We perpetuate a culture of punishment. So we need to look at legislative bills. We're a prison abolitionists. We have to, look at what's going on in the school board. We have to look at this current trend and see in Washington and nationally that says no ethnic studies, and they cloud it in critical race theory, right? As if something's wrong with critical race theory, but they, the way they push it is horrible.
right.
So people need to understand the importance of transformative justice and to look at our institutions. And, so I think that that's extremely important as a prison abolitionist. People listen to that and they think, okay, open the doors, let everybody out. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
We're saying we need to create a society that is wholesome. It's a theory of change, systemic change, and doing something that makes you uncomfortable.
Right. I have trouble with the word reentry sometimes, because it's like you have to already be in there or part of the community before you can what are you re-entering if you were never a part,
Right. Kamante, you want to say something real quick, or are you going to call back?
I'm about to call back.
Okay, call back.
Gotcha. Okay, so we are actually now we're going to open it up to the audience. We had a couple people submit some questions ahead of time from the audience. And so first questions from Gail Hansen. And question was, what was the response by the guards to the film? Great question, Gail. Okay, let's unmute Dr. Sheppard.
I think she's getting Kimonti back on the phone.
Okay.
Calls of this nature,
Okay.
dial 7 now.
I'm chewing gum and tap dancing at the same time. How's that?
You're doing great.
I'm the pipeline, right? So, okay, and I always gave them respect. I called them officers. I never called them guards, even though sometimes they would be like very like, oh, here comes Hug a Thug. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Oh, he just got off. He'll call back.
Okay.
When they would say that, I would say, oh, I could hug them. So, I made it wit. And, I never would, what I learned. Okay, wait. I'm sorry.
You have a prepaid call.
Come
You will
on.
not be charged for this call. This call
Okay.
is from
Okay, all right.
an inmate at Stafford Creek
This is-
Correction Center.
this
He
is the
shouldn't even have
course.
to do this. He should just be able to call you regular.
The calls of this nature, dial
I'm sorry, did you guys ask me a question while I was getting my keys and stuff?
Oh, no.
Find this
We
call.
still waiting.
Okay.
The question was,
Okay.
how did the officers, the guards
But
respond?
one of the things is that, it is great to have, though, an advocate who is part of the administration.
Mhm.
At Monroe Prison, I had Scott Franks, who was the superintendent. At WCCW, I had, what is her name? Wonderful woman, Miss Ta. What is her name? I can't think of. She was a student of mine, but she also Margaret Gilbert, right?
Yes.
Margaret Gilbert, right? And then at the women's prison, the superintendent was a student of mine. So I got lucky. But it is good to have, you see, I don't walk in there with them and us. I know who they are, and I know how they want to mess with me, for doing this. And then I realized these are a lot of white working class folks who live in a community who never even talk to anyone like me, who look like me, let alone a professor who looked like me, right? So they have a tendency, and you know, I mean, I try to think about what Kamante Carter did. He went across to the white nationalist gang in prison, guy with swastikas all over him, and saw his humanity, right? After a while, and they said, we don't get to have these classes. And I said, what's your children interested in? Someone would tell me. And I said, I'm a professor, I can bring books. So I would bring them some of the most progressive books, Howard Zinn on history, somebody else on journalism. So I tried to develop, I dare say, a community walking in, because I saw them as what white supremacy tries to do. You know, I remember this wonderful person on racial capitalism and says, race is the child of racism, not its father, but also that racism is to control white people's behavior. It really, so that you all will not coalesce, not see your class consciousness, not see how you are criminalized by your poverty too, right? You know, by your trauma and all of that, is to control white people's behavior. Because as this one scholar, Roger Kelly, no, what is his name? RDG Kelly says that racism is to control white people's behavior because we have guns and tanks for everybody else. It's very interesting.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so.
Okay. Did we have any questions come in the chat, Molly?
No, but if you have questions, please put them
Yeah, put them in the chat, y'all. If you got any questions, let's see. We got another one from actually, I'm going to save Peter's question for a little bit. One second.
We have one in the chat.
Okay, go ahead. Let's
Dr.
see.
Sheppard, the theme of how, quote, how we treat our children, unquote, is a major one in the documentary. How did you make that strategic choice?
I remember Kimonti Carter saying to me, it's one thing studying the subject, it's another thing being the subject. And when one of the first classes I teach in my sociology classes, one perspective is sociological imagination. And it's looking at your biography and how history and policies impact, not determine, impact your biography. And I always have my students doing that. And I realized, and when they talked about things, they talked about their childhood. They talked about, I remember Kamante probably gonna get embarrassed with this. He would talk about when he wore his pajamas with the little footsies in and all that, and what happened and those kinds of things. To see these men and women talk about childhood, and then to come from doing this film and meeting child soldiers in the Civil War in Liberia, I said, we need to be responsible to our children, because a friend of mine used to say, now hold on to your seats in this, America's dirty little secret is that we don't like children. Now, I know we do, but look at the policies. When I can go to my class and see someone as young as 13 come to the adult prison, yes, he committed a violent crime. Everyone in my film committed a violent crime. So this is not to pull on, oh, this is nonviolent, so we can let them out. No. What do you think we learn this? They learn this violence from as a response. This is a learned behavior. So my thing is that if I want transformative justice, if I want, a humane and compassionate community, I think it's very important that we coalesce with children, right? And look at how we're treating children. The whole brain idea, now it's up to 20 years, right? 20 years old. So Kimonti Carter has a resentencing hearing, finally. because he committed his crime like 60 something days after he turned 18. If he had committed the same crime at 17 and even at 18, if he had stepped out of the car and did the terrible crime that he did, that he would be out now. So who shoots from a car? Gangs, people who belong to gangs. Close your eyes. What do they look like? And you can get life without parole or the death penalty if you shoot from a car. If you stepped out of the car, move few feet away from the car, Kamante Carter would be out. Now, isn't it a shame we got to compare that kind of thing, right?
Right.
And people don't even know that. And we're trying to move that legislation through, move a bill, trying to create a bill, and Tara Simmons,
We're going
who
to talk about
has
that.
been down,
Yep.
takes that bill and fights like heck. And some people say, well, she's not fighting enough. I'm like, come on.
She's doing what she can do. And
I mean, I'm not, nobody fighting enough.
right. I mean, like, but
You know?
I'm gonna tell you, I've worked down there. It's a
Right.
it's an old man, white man's boys club down there. It's tough.
Right. Yeah. So what she's up against, just like AOC, so, yeah, I wanted to thank you for seeing that it is about children. I'm so glad. That's the reason I have kids with masks and playing like they're shooting each other with their hands, because it comes out of their bodies, those kinds of things, right? And some of the child soldiers that I saw in the Civil War in Liberia wore masks and capes. They were children. They were children playing like they were superheroes, not understanding. They were 11. I mean, come on.
Kimonti, has COVID had any effect on the programming that you've in prison right now? Like, what were the effects of COVID that you've been seeing?
Well, there was lots of effects early on. Because ultimately the first response was just to shut down everything. Right, but I think that the one of the benefits, right, that that the administration kind of quickly came to recognize was that this was a program that didn't need any outside sponsors. We didn't need any outside people coming into the institution as a way of being able to make sure that that idleness wasn't something that begun to take hold. And so, what we was able to do is we was just based on the relationships that we've been able to really create and maintain, and we was able to, really to meet with the administration as a way of being able to take in all of the concerns that people had with regards to social distancing and masks and all of those different types of things, and still be able to provide, many of the men, who was doing or who was interested in taking class to be able to make sure that they were still able to come to teach programs. So, so I would say, the immediate effects was something that the administration could not ignore. Because with the world being shut down, with no one being able to allowed to come in, with people getting sick, they realized the importance of teach and the positivity it could bring into to an institution that was dealing with the things that we was dealing with. And so I would say is that they was able to really recognize the benefits. And we're in the process right now of hosting another orientation, on the other side of Christmas. That way we can start the first week of January, just so we can, continue to make sure that liberation education doesn't take a day off.
Okay. Yeah, and then quickly, because I know we're winding down on time. Are visitors still not allowed within the prison right now?
Well, they've just opened up visiting. Well, they've been having visiting, I would say, for a couple of months. Okay. With regards to family visits. As of right now, the institution is trying to position itself to allow volunteers and sponsors to come back into the institution as well. Okay. So that right there is also something that we're striving to work on. But they're definitely taking all the precautions. They're making sure that people who are coming inside the institutions, whether you're guests, volunteers, or sponsors that you've either been vaccinated or you test negative with a rapid test.
Mhm.
And we're looking forward to getting DPC and all of that stuff going. As soon as we get the go ahead. But they have begun opening up programs for visitors, and they also begin to open up visiting for families.
Okay. Let's see. One other question from Jackie, and it's Ta and Kimonti. I'm a law student and I volunteer in a program at my law school to represent people incarcerated in Massachusetts in disciplinary hearings and parole hearings. Do you have any advice to law students, lawyers to help us better represent people who are incarcerated? Either one. Ta, or do we still have to, is Ta still on? Let me see.
Yeah, but
Okay.
Kimonti is about to
Go
go
ahead,
off.
Kimonti. Yep.
No, I missed the part of that question, so I was going to ask if you could paraphrase from me.
Sure. Do you have any advice to law students and lawyers to help them better represent people who are incarcerated?
Law students and lawyers. Man, I would say the biggest thing is to meet them where they are. I think it's extremely important for law students, especially law students, because the BPC, we've had law students from many different law schools around the state come into BPC meetings, meet with us, talk about policies, talk about legislation, talk about projects that they're working on in their law school. Because I think that unless you go inside and you actually meet with the men, you're going to be I think you're going to be misinformed.
That's right.
Of the actuality that actually exists, processes, policies, and the things and how they're applied to the men and women in real life.
Right.
So
right.
The books that you're learning in law school are one thing, right? But when you go in and you actually speak to people who've been convicted of the same policies and laws that you have been studying in a classroom setting, you're going to be completely blown away by how the practice and application are two different things. My advice would be, for students who is definitely interested in teaching law, whether it's a defense attorney or a prosecutor, right? I would definitely encourage them to go inside prisons. If there's programs that are taking place, if there's opportunities for you to actually sit with prisoners, meet with prisoners, talk with prisoners, and be able to engage in a dialogue and create relationships, I think it would definitely transform your experience tenfold, because I think, and then you'll be able to also, have a better idea with how you can help them, right? Because it's one thing for me to say how you can help people here, whether it's Stafford Creek, but it's, once you go into Airway Heights or Shelton or Monroe or Purdy, your list is going to be constantly evolving because everybody's needs are different.
Right.
So, and the way that you become familiar with the needs is you got to go inside.
That's right. And I just want to say that now, prosecuting attorney in King County is going to use the film, right, as a, what's it called, CLEs, where you can
continuing legal education.
So so they can see it, because it is a virtual walk inside prison, because folks are saying, like, you brought out their humanity. You know what I mean? So but I think I totally agree with Kamante. Go there.
So yes,
proximity is important.
It is. It really is. I worked for the FEPPS program.
That's right.
Was in a prison five days a week. And you need to go there and experience it, because even if you are allowed to leave, it still has an effect on you. And I don't think people understand that. But yes. Really? Okay. Last question. And then got a couple of updates for everybody. It's from PETA, and it says it's for both Ta and Kimonti. What do you personally feel is most important for viewers of the film to take away from your stories? And thank you for sharing them with us.
I didn't mean to do that. Oh, okay. You guys can hear me. So I just stopped for a second. I think that one of the most important things is and this just dovetails on what both Gilda and Kimonti already said, is to understand that inside prisons, you're gonna hear horrific stories. You're gonna hear about the trauma that people inflicted on other people because of their own trauma. And you have to be willing to see people for who they are right now, and to understand that people are always going to be people. What I want you to understand is that I am not any different from any other person that you've met. And I dare say that people who have been or people who have or haven't been in prison have done horrific things to each other in the name of love or hurt or fear. And we still have to continue to wake up every day and to give people a chance. And whether you're a law student or a lawyer or someone in the community, you have to be willing to just accept people at the basis of their humanity first, and then figure out, have a couple of beliefs that are yours, that aren't about somebody else, and be able to stand on those as well.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you, Ta. Go ahead, Kamante.
Something to take away from the film, I would definitely say is, for many of the men and women who, who are facilitators of the program, who are really working towards, the helping people who are, convicted of, many, like you said, violent crimes, become better versions of themselves, is that, not only did we get caught for the crimes that we did, but I think, the thing that really, sets us apart from many other people, and I would say in society, is that we've been able to own our decisions, our poor decisions. Mm-hmm. And we've used those as a way of not only, working on bettering ourselves, but also to better the lives and the communities of those around us. And, because we've had to really to confront ourselves, right, to look at ourselves in the mirror and to be able to really identify who we are, I think it's one of the things that really makes us, I would say, probably closer to human than people actually give us credit for. Because we're also we're willing to give up mind and body as a way of being able to show that, not only are we resilient, but I think that we're worthy of that opportunity. Yes. And the guys that are, and the women who are, teaching classes, running programs, really giving of themselves, they're giving selflessly, with nothing in return. Only because we realize
you have 60 seconds remaining.
As people, we can be better, and with tools and information, right, that is provided to people who have been limited their whole life, I think that's the only way that we can help people make better decisions for themselves. And so, we're human. I think that as humanity is already has most of us designed to make mistakes. We've learned from it. We've picked ourselves up, and
you have 30 seconds remaining.
Giving back because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Kimonti. Well, I want to be respectful of folks' time, but Dr. Sheppard, any closing remarks, and then we'll a couple of quick announcements.
People want to know how they can see the film. Okay, Kimonti, and Kimonti has not even seen the film.
Oh,
yeah, I know, that shocks everybody, doesn't it? Because soon I will be getting in the prison to show the film. COVID happened and it became a big crazy thing, but isn't that something? and sometimes people who have been down, it's difficult for them to even watch the film because of excuse me. All right, just a second. All right, but also people want to know how to see the film or show the film to a community. Okay, wait. Please go to the website. There's a place where you can do that, or better, Kamante, are you there? Okay. Or email me at gildasheppard@gmail.com so I can send it straight over to my impact team and they will come straight to you so that you could show this film. There was one question about how did Kamante go to the white nationalists. I thought about that too, because when I met him, I said, Chad, I would never sit next to you with all those swastikas. And Kamante looked at me and said, maybe that's the reason why he got him on. And so I was like, what? And in the film, the guy talks about that. I met his grandmother and everything. I knocked on the door and his grandmother said, oh, you're Black. My child is getting better, like, you know, because he talked with respect about, I gave his attorney, because what I do is I edit some of the film from some clips from the film that involved a particular person, like Damar, Kimonti, Ta, and Chad. And I put together an edited of his clips, give it to his grandmother. His grandmother gives it to the attorney, and lo and behold, the judge gets it. So they're able to see this humanity, right? So I mean, how Kamante did it, because he's an out-of-side organizer.
Absolutely, that's part of like a mitigation packet. Yes, yes. Participatory defense.
Yeah.
So quick announcements. Thank you so much for everybody just coming and showing up tonight. We really appreciate it. As Dr. Sheppard said, go to sinceI'veBeenDown.com. We will do a follow-up email with some more just other links, resources, and some more follow-up stuff with the film. Then I also wanted to make an announcement. So January 5th, which is a Wednesday, from 6 to probably going to be 7:30, usually it's 7, but it's going to be a little longer. We're going to do a advocacy training and kind of release our legislative priorities for the 2022 legislative session. It'll be really, I'm going to go through and show folks how to virtually lobby your state representatives and senators. And it's actually really, I mean, as bad as COVID is, it's actually made it easier for us to participate within legislation, the legislative process. So we're going to go through that on January 5th, 6 p.m. If you need to be added to our public calendar that we have, please email Molly or info@ Northwest Community Bail Fund. And then also there will be a virtual lobby day on January 25th for the multi-faith.
Yes, that's it.
Yes, multi-faith group. And it's from 9 to 4 and it's virtual. Some of the bills that they're kind of focusing on is going to be SB 5036, which is expanding clemency, House Bill 1312, which is restricting solitary confinement, HB 1413, which is going to reform the juvenile sentencing to make it less punitive. And then also House Bill 1169, which is involving destacking sentencing enhancements, which some folks get, like you get a gun, you do a crime with a gun, it's automatic 5 years. So we will also discuss some of these same bills within our own legislative priorities. But please join us on the 5th. And if you need more information, please go to our website, contact us. And thank you so much for being here. I really, this was really dope. And I'm so grateful to Kimonti and Ta and Dr. Sheppard for being here with us and just sharing your stories and letting us be a part of this.
Thank you, Northwest Bail Fund, and thank you, Chanel, for a phenomenal facilitation. I'm so proud to be part of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our volunteers too, because we would not be able to do some of what we do without y'all.
Molly, Becky. Yeah. What did you say, Kamante?
I said, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Hearts went up on the Zoom. Well, you know, we're in these little boxes and hearts. Look at them. They're just coming up. Hearts, hearts, hearts. Okay. Thank you. And even praying hands and all kinds of things. It's just beautiful. Thank you so much. I guess I'll go.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
See you, Ta.
Thanks, Chanel. That was lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, all your prep work really paid off. You guys did a great job. Even if I did almost not make it in.
Wait, I didn't even hear what'd you say?
I said, even if I did almost not make it in,
Oh,
I couldn't log in. I had to pretend to be